There we go.
So where was it? It was under more.
Now our guests online are able to speak.
There we go. What? All right. Welcome, Julianne. It's great to have you here. All right. Agenda changes. Postponing the educational spotlight to the April meeting and postponing the district calendar approval to the April meeting.
Is the calendar just not available yet, or?
Calendar committee met and they were trying to put together a 4-day and a 5-day option, and they needed more time. I believe we'll have to see what comes out of their group. But I believe they are going to continue the discussion about a 4-day week and bring to the next meeting option their recommendation for a 5-day calendar. But that's committee. We'll see what they bring, but they just asked if they could have more time. So I said we could postpone it for 1 month. So my apologies if that doesn't work, but figured it's better to give them the time and have them come up with something that was workable for staff.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda changes as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all of those who approve, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Consent agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All of those who approve, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Okay, I have no one who has signed up for public input, so we're moving forward. Our student representative is not here tonight, so we will move forward with the superintendent report.
All right, so you have my report in packet. I did meet with not the county commissioner. I called him the county commissioner, but Mr. Fitzgerald at the county. I believe he's like the county manager, like city manager of the county. And we discussed the project across the highway from us. And then later that evening, I attended the Board of Commissioners meeting that was held here in Port Orford. And I did speak during public comment. And then commissioners responded to that. I think there were 2 other people that had comments on that property as well for a variety of reasons. But the bottom line is that they are still looking at this as a viable project. Shared with them through letter and discussion at the meeting that we are interested in helping with the development of the interpretive trail and interpretive center and anything that happens with that natural land on the 28 acres. Ms. Tomko is ready to have her horticulture class be involved, and I believe Ms. Johnson would be with the science end of things too. And then the other 4-acre parcel that's part of it is where the housing for teachers would come in. And they believe that those grants at the state level are available every year for affordable housing. What those grants are really tied to are projects that are shovel ready. So they told me they were going to be working to get stumps removed and do everything they needed to make it shovel ready and then apply for the grant. And at that point, they would be involving us, me, in a more direct way. The other thing that came up is they had concern about what might happen over there with septic and sewer approval. And so I shared that we have our own sewage treatment system here that we have need to make some repairs to and update, and is something that quite frankly could be a potential bond project to help with some of that. But they also thought that that might be a way for them to tie things in and take care of the septic needs over there. As they do that, that would help us with the cost of the sewage treatment plant and upgrading it so that it's still functioning the way that it should. So there might be a win-win situation with that. We'll have to see how that goes. But the project is still in the works. It's still on hold, but the last couple of months, I would not have been holding my breath that it would happen, but I think I could hold it for a little while. I think they're still making progress and have us in mind and have the right avenues available to potentially make it work. We'll see.
Is the hold just with getting the property cleared?
I think there's a couple of other things that they have to do to call it shovel ready. I don't know exactly what those grants call for, but I think the biggest piece is getting stumps removed and getting it excavated so it's somewhat level in the areas where the homes go. And at that point, they would have a viable piece of property where they could apply for the next grants to do the housing and infrastructure that goes along with it.
And I am still concerned about the affordable housing grants. And this is not an area that I'm knowledgeable, but I have been told that those are really, it's more like Section 8, that those may not be housing systems that would work for teachers. That might be looking at a really different clientele.
I think there are some that are available that are affordable housing specifically for projects like this. They are looking at one in Brookings, where that piece of property is shovel ready. So I think they may get to cut their teeth on that one before they get to ours.
Okay.
But it did sound like there were affordable housing things that were directly related to economic development. And
Okay.
they would be able to make those things happen.
Okay.
I think
If it were affordable housing that would be open for anyone, that would not
Yeah.
meet our purposes.
Right.
That would not be something that I would be
yeah.
working to do, and I don't
Right.
think they would follow through with it if
Right.
that
Okay.
that were not. the
Okay.
case.
I think the term is workforce housing.
Right.
Because we also talked about the fact that if we did that and we had 4 or 5 homes there or apartments or whatever they put in, and we only had 3 staff members that wanted to take advantage of it, there would be open housing that could be potential for city workers, for county workers, state park workers. There's any number of governmental positions that are not typically, they're good paying family wage jobs, but they aren't necessarily capable of purchasing
Right.
housing in
Right.
our
Right.
neighborhoods.
Right. No, that makes sense. I just wanted to be clear that if they're going for grant funding, we just want to be sure that it meets what we actually need.
Yes. No, it's very, very specific towards teacher housing.
Okay,
Everything they talked about was
Excellent.
there. And then I brought up that, if we didn't, because that was one of their concerns, what if we don't fill it, we don't have enough need? Then we could branch out
Yeah.
to other
No, I like that.
areas of government.
Okay.
So that's the update on that. If you have any input on the strategic draft plan, the draft strategic plan that I gave you, or any of the other pieces that I shared at the workshop or the last meeting, let me know. We are going to be working on that math metric for our longitudinal performance growth targets. It's probably not something that you're going to see until next year. But Shane and I have it on our list, and we'll be working to plug that in. And if we do get a metric, we can always put together a number for you. But in terms of developing a goal and how far, we expect to raise the bar in the first year or 2 or 3 years, that's stuff that'll take us some time to put together. Students and academics, it felt weird to have nothing to report. Things are moving right along. It's a big, we're in the middle of the new semester. But state testing is beginning. They sort of take their student surveys today here at the high school, and then they have a schedule to continue on with state testing and make sure we get everyone covered and meet all those requirements. And then I wanted to give you an update on the long-range planning committee work. At our last meeting, you all shared that it would be more appropriate and better for the community to bump that potential election date to spring of 26 as opposed to November of this year. And I'm feeling comfortable with that. Had a meeting with parents last Monday and another one coming up on Wednesday to get input on our integrated guidance, how we're spending our grant money from the state, but also to give a little heads up on the potential for a bond request. And I changed that from gathering a lot of input to sharing the basics and promising that we'll have other meetings to discuss that in more depth as we get closer. So that's where that process is at. And then on the COPS grant, we're just waiting to get bids. The project manager and the group that helped us, Soderstrom Architects, that helped us with the long-range planning portion of things are also involved with the COPS grant, and we should have some bids soon. As soon as those come in, then how much we're spending on completing the 2 front entryways at both buildings, and then we'll see how much money is left to take care of the security fence and making it so that we can lock the gate no matter where our buses are, so that they can get back in and out in the evening. And then anything that's left from that will very likely go to a couple other fencing needs, but mostly cameras, making sure that we are covered in every single spot that we need to be. We had another break-in 2 weeks ago in the building, the district office maintenance building. And then we had a car that was left in the parking area over the weekend and someone broke into that. So we do have some security needs being this far out of town, and we're trying to make sure we've got good coverage as good as we can to catch them. And then the last thing I have for you is an update on district happenings. These are the events that are on our calendar between now and a little past our next meeting. So really appreciate it when you can join in and be a part of things and see all the good things that are happening. We did have 75 people turn out at the bingo night last Thursday. I had about probably 12 to 15, I think, at my first parent community engagement piece, and then we'll see how many show up on Wednesday.
Right. Any questions? Thank you, Aaron. Okay, the principal's report is in the packet. Are there any questions about that? Transportation maintenance report is in the packet. We have the business office school board report, which is our financial. Is there any questions about that?
I'd just like to say again, I really like having a little written summary. Helps digest things.
Notice the bottom line is down, about
Yes.
100 grand or so.
And it will continue to go down between now and the end of the year. We are starting to get our numbers in terms of how kindergarten going to halftime impacts our revenue. We are down a couple of kids, and so that would impact revenue a little bit, but we're also getting through expenditures and realizing encumbrances. So that number will continue to go down. We don't, and right now we're anticipating it being somewhere around 1 million a year. Am I speaking appropriately?
Yeah.
Yep.
Same.
And we're continuing to monitor that and go more and more detail with our discussions and with discussions of the other entity that's helping Tara look through things. We anticipate that we're going to be in a really good spot, accurate numbers and on time and good projections for next year when it's time for budget committee.
All right. Moving on, the new business was postponed, our agenda changes. And so we are at old business budget committee members.
We had one additional applicant, that's Samantha Ross, just got that today, and that's in your packet.
Okay.
And I think you had picked up an application, did the person that you approached have any interest?
They do. I'm not sure if they returned it or
I
not.
haven't seen it
But what
yet.
their deadline,
We kind of need to decide
right?
like now. but-
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, Terry, could we wait another month?
If we ended up having someone else that was interested, I believe that we could make a decision on that as late as the start of the first budget committee.
I think that's what I recall, yeah, so they could, if
So-
they want to get it in soon.
Yeah,
get it on.
And then if we had multiple, then the board would have to decide at that meeting which, because we only have one more position open, right?
After, if you guys approve Samantha.
Yeah, so if multiple people put their name in afterwards at that first budget committee meeting, you would have to make a decision on which one would join us. If there's only one, then you could appoint or not approve.
Okay. Is that okay with the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will make a motion for tonight, though, that we approve Sam Ross for the budget committee.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all of those who approve Sam Ross for the budget committee, please raise your hand. Unanimous? All right, the school board timeline update and review.
And Stephanie, I tried to update this document and send you a new version, but I don't know if it actually sent. So because we had, now that we have some dates, or is it on here? That's, oh, okay, okay. Just to, yeah, okay, okay.
Okay. Right now, it seems like we are kind of staying on track with the schedule. Are you as board members finding this helpful for keeping us on track of things?
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
so. It's a good idea to keep looking at it. Just
Okay.
stay on track.
They all sort of affect each other, so.
Yeah, keep us in mind.
You know, the faculty and staff develop a calendar, which helps keep them organized and track for the year. That's just the same thing for us. It seems to me useful to helps my mind anyway.
All right, then we're at the first reading of policies, and the first reading of policies is a time for us to have read through. If there's questions that anyone has, we can ask for clarifications.
So all this, they had fun with these, didn't they?
me.
There were quite a few changes that were made, and I believe many of them have to do with, change in Title IX policy at the federal level.
I figured something happens. The ones that were addressed just seemed fairly specific.
Yes. So just share process through this. So these policies, if you have questions or things to suggest for change, then that would be something that the board would all discuss and approve or not. But at the first reading, it is that time where you can ask questions, share things to make change. We can still do that at the second reading as well, if you look through and, or catch something that you didn't the first time. But typically the second reading is the one that, at that one, we will ask for approval. And, given where we're at, we still have some more policies from the first group, correct? So, you'll have first readings this month. And then next month, you'll have second reading on the ones that are here. And then you'll have another set of policy coming your way that will be on first reading for April.
Page 22. We struck out the word immediately, following, encouraged to report sexual harassment. They struck out the word immediately. Why would they do that?
Maybe so that they don't feel like if they don't report it right away, they can't report it later on.
That would seem, that would seem to be counter to getting both the facts and the investigation as clear as possible, because as the more time goes by between an event and when you start talking about it, the more things get forgotten, the more, memory morph usually can happen. I just don't see what the,
A lot of kids are gonna speak up right away. It's gonna take a while though. So I think that's probably why they removed it. They're scared.
that bothers me, okay?
I think that, yeah, but that's reality though. I think that kids are.
Yeah, but it's
scared to
reality,
speak up.
it's reality for the person potentially being reported too, It wasn't significant enough to come forward right away and get the basic facts report made, but months later it is, or weeks later it is. That just doesn't seem to me be a wise or smart way to handle. I mean, it's not just about the person making the report. You're also affecting the person who was the target of that report. And I think they deserve to have the most clearest description, the most clearest, the most, timely report made out. So stuff doesn't get lost or embellished or forgotten or whatever between the event and when it finally gets reported. That concerns me that they would.
Yeah, but I mean, legally, there's a timeline, right, where there's like a timeline.
Statute of limitation.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they didn't say what it is.
well, I mean, it's a law, yeah. So I think that this is just kind of being a little more vague to kind of cover under that umbrella.
Yeah, and I don't think vagueness in something like this that has the potential to ruin somebody's career is
Or
good.
to nurture an opportunity for further victims.
Yeah.
But people are allowed to process their trauma in their time. And if
Sorry.
they don't feel safe.
Now you're
coming
saying,
forward,
now you're saying one person's trauma is more important than somebody else's, and I can't go there.
I think each person has to evaluate their own piece, because it is, and I'm speaking sort of guessing, but, I'm guessing the statistics are pretty high for people that have been in abuse to go through the process and determine when they're ready to share. There is a lot of drama that's involved with that, and it does potentially impact somebody else. But each person has to have their own level. Each person does have their own level of what's acceptable for them and how they process things and whether they're ready to move forward with sharing something. I would agree that immediately is better all the way around. But whether you choose to reinsert that word or take it out, it's not going to change the fact that it encourages them to do it immediately, but it does not preclude them from being able to do it at some point later, unless it goes over those statute of limitations, which in most cases, I think is like 7 years plus, depending on the offense. So I don't really have an opinion, but I do think when you're talking about people that have faced some sort of harassment or abuse, there's a wide range of when people are comfortable sharing that. And I don't know that it's not going to impact whether they have the ability to or not. But I can see both sides. We do want them to do it in a timely manner, but you don't want to put a word in there that makes somebody think that if they don't do it now, they can't ever do it.
What other words would be considered? What other words could be considered that you would show an urgency or that?
well, I'm
that
not-
would be Timely?
Yeah, that would, I guess, would be the next discussion, but yeah,
Because that immediately is also crossed out on the previous page, under by other staff also. That would be almost like a third party that wasn't really involved and probably doesn't have that same
and which one?
consideration for process. Just the previous page, 21. Second half of it. It's crossed out in the same context.
Yeah. In terms of staff reporting.
Again, I just have a problem with that.
Promptly is used within that.
What about are encouraged to report their concerns to district officials as soon as possible? Do you feel like that has a little bit more of a middle road tone to it? Versus immediately? You're still kind of getting in that sense of as soon as possible, but it's also not implying. I feel like, yeah,
We have a principle in our legal philosophy. Justice delayed is justice denied, okay? And that's what I'm concerned about here. I mean, you start talking 7 years for crying out loud. It's troubling to me. I'll leave it go at that. Let's move on.
I think that's an interesting question though, because it doesn't, the way I would read that, the immediately doesn't read as a requirement. It reads as an
That they're
encouragement
encouraged.
to move things along, which doesn't seem bad, yet I completely understand Angel's point exactly. And I mean, how many cases do you see where it's been several years and finally like, oh my gosh, there's
well,
been.
look at some of the cases that are going on in the
Exactly,
state of Oregon right now
exactly.
in school districts.
So
Yeah.
there needs to be leeway, but yeah.
And we you done with kids, you know, sometimes they're scared to even
Oh,
tell their
yeah,
parents.
yeah.
And then the parents find out, it might not be immediately, but I mean,
Right,
parents
yep,
are probably
right.
gonna tell you pretty quick.
Yeah.
They're not gonna sit around on it.
No.
Sometimes kids don't even tell their parents. Parents hear from a rumor that they told other kids because they're too scared to tell what happened. So,
Sometimes,
you know,
especially with younger students or children, they may be a little bit more naive than we as adults think they are.
yes.
And sometimes I think we can get caught up in culture where we think that they're very savvy about things pertaining to sexual harassment, and they may be a lot more naive than we think, and they may not even possibly realize what happened.
The gravity of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They could have been conditioned to things.
Lots of things that go into it. Really good point. And the red is a recommendation from OSBA, right?
Yes.
So there's usually a reason why they're pretty thoughtful and
Right.
meticulous about their.
Versus the blue.
Mhm.
Am I correct in assuming that IIA and IKJ are both new?
Good.
I don't see any augmentation.
The one on AI is cool, Brett.
Are you bored?
Okay. I do think that they are, I do think,
There's terminology changes.
And question on JECA, admission of resident students,
What page, John?
56 and
Thank you.
57.
Okay.
Where what is washed out in district is put in. business. It's
That's why they crossed it out, Jane. Superintendent administration decision.
Interesting.
So Erin, would it be acceptable that if, as we move along with our meeting, that if people have questions about the policies, they could email them to Stephanie and the questions could be answered in a general email sent out from Stephanie. And then, of course, addressed also at our next board meeting.
Yeah, I think that works. The initial question would have to fit the. And then we can send out information to all board members. But I do think it's a good idea that any of those questions and the answers that come with them should be a part of our next board meeting, just to
For the
share
public
what's
to
been
know.
discussed, even though it would still, it wouldn't violate any meeting law, but I think it's still better to be transparent that way. That would work. And this is not, the first reading is not.
Yeah.
So there's make tonight, so questions could come next meeting and final decision.
Okay, then, I am not sure if I need to ask motion or whatever, but at this point, since we are not voting on approval of these, I'm wondering if the board would be interested in looking at the at home and being able to send questions to Stephanie that can be answered, and we also can discuss them at our next meeting. Or do you want to take more time of looking over them today and coming up with questions?
I'm fine either way.
I am happy either way. I think I always work better after a sleep though.
And what about you, Bob? What are your feelings on it?
I think I've expressed my concern. I found another one, there's another one that did the same thing. I was on page 48.
Okay.
Another Same thing, struck out the word immediately, they shall report. Oh, well. Fine, okay.
Library have a thesaurus.
What?
Does our library have a thesaurus?
No idea.
I'm curious, like you said, is there some legal reason that they've struck that out?
So.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I have no idea.
You know,
Seems vague to me, but it could be one of those must, shall,
Yeah.
should, you know, the terminology
Mhm.
meant something specific, and so they took immediately out, so it gave more timelines to be appropriate with what law is, but I'm
Yeah.
just guessing.
No, I think that's kind of what I was thinking too.
But Angel's right, they usually don't make changes unless they've had something come up legally that there needs to be a change. But I have no specifics on this one.
it's startling to see all, you know, there's whole pages, you know, where they've struck out, you know, huge things and there's no replacement.
I was surprised to see that too. Just.
You're right. As Aaron said, it seems to be anything had to do with federal, you know, it's like
That's a
gone.
legal thing. Yeah.
Okay, so, anyway, okay.
Okay, so then I'm picking up that the consensus is that we'll continue reviewing these policies at home. If there are any questions, we can either bring them to the next board meeting or we can email our questions to Stephanie. And then she will facilitate getting information for us that will be sent out to all board members. So when we come back, we've all had equal access to the information.
And we will share those
Discuss it
questions and the answers that were given to you at the next meeting for transparency.
All right. Then moving forward, we have finished our board meeting and the items on the agenda. And does anyone have any comments that they would like to make as board members?
I'd like to offer my gratitude to Gary Burns for offering prize, the whole community for offering a lot of bingo prizes. Truly, that piece of artwork is a draw. People come for that.
Are you doing a heart?
He did.
Oh.
It's so beautiful. But there were a lot of gift certificates. There was a lot of merchandise. There was a lot of, it feels like quality sourcing. A lot of people came together, but truly, Gary, thanks.
And this community does that for that. They did that for the senior event night on Saturday. They continue to support our school and our kids, and thank everybody that does that, all the individuals, the groups, the organizations,
Yes,
all come through for us.
we are very blessed. Yes, we are. Okay, seeing no more inclination or movement towards any board comments, then I am open to a motion to adjourn.
Well, I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay,
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, meeting's adjourned. Like 48 minutes. Yeah. Okay, and our next board meeting is April 10th is our work session.
Things off over here. The end.
Yep. Somehow I had that written down for the 4th.